Welcome into Texans on Tap. I'm Brandon Strange with Charlie Palillo and Josh Jordan of SportsMap. You can follow them on X at Palillo and at Josh Jordan 975. And in between our episodes here, you can go read their blogs covering the Texans, Astros, and Rockets over on sportsmap.com. On today's episode, we'll discuss some takeaways from the second preseason game against the Panthers. We'll look at how the offense and defense are shaping up ahead of next week's roster cuts and get you all ready for Texans Lions on Saturday. Josh, Charlie, welcome in. Texans got their first win of the preseason, yay, over the lowly Panthers. We finally got to see the first team out there on offense and defense doing what they do. I want to start with the offense first because this was our first chance to really see some of that new look O-line out there, albeit, no Cam Robinson, no Titus Howard. But what did you see? And does it change your mind about how they'll line up once the games start counting?
It's so tough for me to gauge much of anything from a preseason game. The closest thing, I guess, to the dress rehearsal, the next to last preseason game. But as you mentioned, Brandon, two of the guys are expected to be starters in the O-line, not playing. The Carolina Panthers expected to pick up mostly where they left off last season, meaning to stink. Teams are going to play very basically with their defensive fronts, not a whole lot of exotic stuff and show things that teams scouting them for early regular season matchups might say, oh, Carolina likes to do this in that situation defensively. So, I mean, it was good to see the first unit, such as it was, execute a touchdown drive in its limited time on the field. We haven't seen C.J. Stroud really air it out yet, but I don't think there's been anything we've seen, small sample size given. But after he had the sore arm in the offseason and didn't do much throwing for a while. So I'm going to stick with where we were a year ago. You come out of the game without any consequential injuries. I think it's going to be tough to judge the O-line. And, oh, man, Caley's light years better than Slowick until the ammo's real.
I feel like I kind of mentioned this last week too. They just look, the offensive line in particular, look like they're doing what they're doing better. It looks like CJ has command, and we know this is the thing that CJ wanted. He wanted to be able to run the offense, get them in and out of plays, change protections at the line of scrimmage, kind of do what Matthew Stafford does with the Rams. And where did Nick Caley come from? The Rams. And you get some of those Brady Patriots type ideas kind of mixed in there too. So I think this is all good for CJ. I thought they operated efficiently. I thought the O-line did a good job. I didn't find a bunch of guys in CJ's lap when he was trying to make throws, and the run game, they were able to move the ball. There was actually some push. So overall, I was pretty happy with the offense, and we'll get into specifics with some of the other positions, but overall, I was happy with what I saw.
I want to be sure to get this. We've slightly buried the lead since we're talking about the offense and C.J. Stroud. Talk about, and now you guys may violently disagree, and for those consuming just by the audio, I put my Seattle Mariners cap on. Talk about much ado about nothing. People wanting to roast C.J. Stroud as the Benedict Arnold of Houston sports. How dare he put on a Seattle Mariners cap? He has some Mariner fan history, Seahawk history. He's a West Coast guy, and he's a hat fashionista. So anyone really uptight over C.J. Stroud showing the temerity to dare wear a Mariners cap for a postseason or preseason postgame press conference, get over yourself, please. I'm done.
Yeah, and he said it was about the drip, and I don't really care either way. But also read the room, maybe a little bit. I don't know. I think the reaction was over the top. I agree, but also
Jalen Hurts wears Astro stuff in Philadelphia.
Exactly, smart man, right there. Smart man.
Yeah. I do want to touch on something you said real quick. I do want to touch on one thing, though. You did say you anticipate Cam Robinson being the starter. Who do you guys think is going to play left tackle?
Josh, if you have any grip on this, it's better than I have.
It's kind of up in the air right now. if you watch what Aaron Wilson continues to report, is at camp, their starting O-line is Ursery at left tackle, Tomlinson at left guard, Jake Andrews at center, Ingram at right guard, and Titus Howard at right tackle. Now, they have been choosing not to play certain guys in preseason games. And, with Cam Robinson being hurt, they're paying him a ton of money. I think they would have been happy if he came in and played a good left tackle for him, but he's been banged up. But I think the original goal was to draft Ursery and have him eventually be your Laramie Tunsil replacement. He's playing so well that I think the Texans are thinking like, man, this was going to be his spot anyway. Maybe he just takes it from Jump Street. So I think that's kind of where they are right now, because if they don't do that, then that's when the shuffle happens, because then are you going to play Ursery over at right guard if he's not playing or you'll play Ursery at right tackle instead of left tackle if you're going to have Robinson there. And then you move Titus Howard into right guard, kind of like they said before the season. I think this is all still very, very much up in the air right now. Scruggs is still getting in their guard and getting some reps in with the ones from time to time. They're still mixing and matching, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ursery is the guy at left tackle. He's looked really good, but man, for what they're paying Cam Robinson, that's a lot to pay a backup dude. I get why you're asking the question.
Yeah, that
given
was
the poorness of the offensive line last season. I think it would be a disappointment to near indictment of Nick Caserio if in back-to-back years you spent a second-round pick on an offensive lineman and neither of the two was good enough to be a starter, either the second-year guy or the rookie, because it's not like they have to unseat perennial Pro Bowlers to secure playing time. So if it turns out Fisher's just not good enough yet or ever to be, but Ursery is, and if they decide he has the feet to handle left tackle, keep Titus Howard on the right side, so be it. They could flip them during the season. And again, this goes to where teams are really firing live bullets at you and mixing up the schemes. And we could tie this in with C.J. Stroud. More license as the line of scrimmage as teams deploy dummy coverages and pre-draft shifts. How do you process all that? How much help will Ursery need if he's this hulking left tackle dealing with all the quality speed rushers around the NFL? And I guess to tie it into another topic on the board, right? They acquire a tight end, not exactly thought of as this elite blocking tight end, but we know Dalton Schultz might struggle to block us. I mean, it might be the three of us at once that he'd have to try to block. Cade Stover apparently graded out very poorly as a blocker himself. Does your left tackle need help, be it from a tight end or a back?
And quickly, Blake Fisher, he hurt his ankle, reported by Aaron Wilson, against the Panthers, and he's been having a camp where he struggled reportedly pretty much the whole time. So you got to think he's probably out of the mix now officially if, a bad camp and he hurts his ankle against the Panthers.
Yeah, and I agree. And that was my point for bringing it up. It's just Robinson seems like a steep investment for a backup. And I know they need depth, so you'll take the help wherever you can get it. But it just seems like the money could have been better spent. But I guess the real headline is that Ursery's ahead of schedule. So maybe that's the positive spin on it. A quick message to show your support for the show. Hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications. We're also on all your favorite podcast apps. Just search Texans on Tap. So sticking on the offensive side of the ball as we wait to see whether Joe Mixon will be ready in week one, we did get a chance to see Nick Chubb take the RB1 reps. Had some nice minutes in the second game. Woody Marks also looks like he could be an interesting X factor at back. If Mixon can't answer the bell for the season opener, how do you think the depth chart and usage, how do you think that plays out for the backs?
Well, I think if you have no Mixon, then I think Chubb comes in, slides in as your number one right away. That's how they're playing it right now. Thought he looked good against Carolina, 5 for 25, so averaging 5 yards a pop. And the burst is starting to come back. The power's always still been there, the timing. He's a good back. I think he'll be fine. You got Dameon Pierce also that can kind of be that thumper, that bruiser that can play on running downs. He can catch the ball a little bit, but that's not really his strength. So I think that'll be kind of their 1-2 punch there. And then I think Woody Marks and Agumbawale will probably compete for pass down work on third down. If they think Woody Marks can pass protect to the level they would like and they can trust him, I think they'll work him in. Agumbawale, he's not flashy, he's not special, but he's a guy that you can kind of trust for the most part. And I think that's why he's stuck on the team for so long. So I think they'll be okay at running back here. But Dameon Pierce, he's been banged up a lot. So I think Woody Marks really could factor in. He looked good. I was impressed with the way he looked. So, hopefully Mixon's back. But if not, look, there's a reason they went out and signed Nick Chubb. There's a reason they went out and did that and drafted a back.
Yeah, Chubb's the obvious starter while Mixon's out, but he's not going to be an every down 25 carry guy. I don't think at this stage of his career. 29 years old, the calamitous knee injury in 2023 that held him out into last season, and it was a broken foot that ended his season. So presumably no repercussions or lingering effects from that. Marks, to me, that's the guy to get in your screen game, little wheel routes. You think he can beat linebackers as your pass catching, so-called third down back, as they used to be noted. Pierce, to me, is just kind of a tweener, but job one for all those guys. If it turns out Mixon misses some time going into the regular season, Joe Mixon, fumble proof, right? The one he actually put down got negated by penalty last season. It's 3 years since Joe Mixon last fumbled or was credited with a fumble in a game. Whoever is carrying the ball in his absence, ball security, job one.
Yeah, I mentioned it last week how every season Pierce gets leapfrogged in the depth chart by whoever the new back is. And here's Woody Marks putting together good tape in the preseason. Look,
he's hurt again, Brandon. I mean, he's hurt again. That just keeps happening,
And when he's healthy, he's not exactly setting the world on fire either.
Yeah, he's back from being hurt again, but you get my point. He missed a lot of time injured, as he often does.
Yeah, I just don't know that there's, other than being a warm body, I don't know that there's a use for him when he is healthy, or at least he hasn't given them a reason to think there's any use for him. Charlie, you mentioned we got to see CJ Stroud for 2 series. What did you guys think of CJ and his connection with the receivers, what we saw in that very limited outing?
CJ Stroud on the field the same time Nico Collins is on the field, the passing game is going to be okay.
Yep.
If they protect.
Yeah, and they did. They did a good job. I'll tell you, the guy was first thing I was impressed with is pretty much all the receivers caught a pass from somebody. Justin Watson caught a pass, Hutchinson, Mechie, who you traded, Higgins caught one, Jalen Knoll. So everybody got involved. That's a good sign. But the guy I'm excited about from watching the tape is Christian Kirk. He just looks like such a Stephon Diggs replacement. He just reminds me of him, the way he moves and his size. And he's a veteran player, but he's not in his 30s yet. He's a little bit younger. I think he could really have a nice year. And if we think back to the Texans offense last season, and my fantasy football brain kicks in, really only 2 guys were all that relevant in the passing game. It was either Nico or Diggs until one of them got hurt, and eventually both of them got hurt. So I think we could see a really heavy Christian Kirk, Nico Collins type of attack this year. And then hopefully you sprinkle the rookies in, you get the tight ends going, the running backs in the pass game. But I think those 2 guys could be target hogs once again for Houston.
You mentioned Mechie, so let's talk about that a little bit. John Mechie getting traded to the Eagles for tight end Harrison Bryant. Now, this makes sense from the standpoint of there's depth in the receiver core. Mechie's never really done anything of consequence when the games count. He's always one of those guys that looks really good in camp and in the preseason, and then when the games matter, he just kind of disappears outside of from a few plays here and there. It made sense from the standpoint also to bring another tight end, after Brevin Jordan went down. So you have another tight end that can compete for depth. What was your reaction to the trade and Mechie's time here in Houston?
Look, as a football player, his career goes down as a disappointment, with the huge caveat that the young man beat leukemia.
Yeah.
That sidelined him for his rookie season. Now, he's made 3 years of checks and presumably will make the Eagles and get a 4th year. I suppose we'll never know for sure. I don't think Mechie was going to make the Texans out of camp this year. Obviously, you have Collins and Kirk 1-2. You drafted receivers in the 2nd and 3rd rounds in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. I thought that Watson signed away from the Chiefs. Locke is probably too strong, but highly likely to make it as wide receiver 5. And then you have Braxton Berrios, who's making it as a punt returner and is also an extra receiver. And if they want to carry one more, you still have Xavier Hutchinson, someone who would contribute potentially on special teams more so than John Mechie ever had a role. So, until the Texans are playing the Eagles in the Super Bowl, good luck to John Mechie in the next chapter of his career. The tight end that they get back, maybe it's bad news for Irv Smith. The Texans going to carry 4 tight ends on the roster. They could. We know Dalton Schultz is safe. We know Cade Stover is safe. If the new guy supplants Smith as opposed to complement Smith. But I mean, it's not an ooh move. It's not a needle mover, roster upgrader, really, for either team. Just the Eagles' depth chart behind their big 2 wide receivers was close to nothing.
For me, I'm wondering, does it tell us a little bit of something about how the Texans may operate this year? And the reason I bring that up, Irv Smith Jr. led the Texans in catches against the Panthers, 5 catches for 46 yards, led them in receiving yards too. So you wonder if maybe the tight end will be a little more of the focus this season. We talked about wanting Dalton Schultz to step up, and maybe they were counting on Brevin Jordan to make an impact this year. And with him hurt, they felt like they needed to go do something. And to Charlie's point, I don't think Mechie was making the team. I think they were going to keep 2 of the old guard between Xavier Hutchinson and Mechie, or they're going to keep one of the 2. And I think Hutchinson, from all the reports, has also had a really good camp, made some big plays. He's a taller guy. I think maybe he's a little more explosive. So it's a shame to see Mechie go, but he wasn't a real twitchy, super fast guy coming out of college. And then he had the medical issues after that. And I don't know if he ever quite, got back up to speed. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but he wasn't considered a burner in the first place. So we saw he had some struggles separating. And the Texans are just deep now at receiver. They were like, we can't do this anymore. We can't go into a season and lose all our receivers and then play the Ravens with Nico Collins and John Mechie and whoever else. They knew they had to upgrade the position. And injuries were getting them with older players. So I like the move. Let's not go get another Diggs that's 30 years old on a 1-year deal. Let's draft some young guys and develop them. So hopefully that pans out with Noel and with Higgins specifically.
Yeah, but speaking of the draft, Caserio did trade up in that second round to draft Mechie. So it is a disappointing way for his time in Houston to end, basically getting traded away for a tight end who may not even make the team. But as you said, Charlie, the more human interest side of it is he beat cancer. So good for him. This week, the Colts announced that they were going away. They were going with Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson to start the season. I bring this up because obviously there are division implications here. We knew when Richardson got drafted, it was a reach. It hasn't panned out for Indy. How do you think the announcement of Jones getting QB1 in Indy, how do you think that affects the dynamics within the division?
Hey, Indy, you want to start mumps or measles at quarterback? I'm not sure which was which. Anthony Richardson, workout warrior, looks the part, carved out of granite. Just can't throw the football worth a damn or stay healthy, which seems an undesirable combination for a starting quarterback. Daniel Jones, epic bust with the Giants after being the 6th pick in the draft. Most people thought it was a reach at the time. He went on to prove that out, but landed a 4-year, $160 million contract in the meantime with the Giants. I mean, Jones can run around a little bit too, but whichever option the Colts went with, they have a bottom quarter starting quarterback in the NFL, but still conceivably could have the second best starting quarterback this season behind C.J. Stroud in the AFC South, because I'm not offering a ringing endorsement for Trevor Lawrence, though I'd certainly take him over Daniel Jones, and we'll see what Cam Ward can do with a limited supporting cast season 1 with the Titans.
Yeah, I was about to go there, Charlie. Earlier, I was more afraid of the Colts, but we talk about vibes. I'm a big vibes guy. The vibes are terrible there. His agent's coming out now saying maybe they don't trust him. I don't know if you guys remember a year ago when Anthony Richardson said, oh, the pros is even easier than college. He said something like that early. Remember in the preseason or something like, how's that working now that Daniel Jones has come in and taken your job 1 year later as a first-round pick? Not so easy, is it? My Lord. But yeah, I think the Jags are the team to be more concerned about now because the vibes have been good there out of camp. And Trevor Lawrence, maybe this is finally the year with the good coordinator and Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. He's got some really great weapons. So And the Titans, rookie quarterback, not worried about them. So, yeah, before I was a little more worried about the Colts, not so much. This tells me something's not right in that building. Irsay passed away. There's a lot of stuff going on there. So, yeah, I think the Jags will probably give the Texans their biggest run for their money.
It is interesting to see Indy in this state of disrepair. A team that's been traditionally run pretty well, is a tight ship over there. Let's move on to the next game. What are you guys going to have your eyes on in Saturday's matchup with the Lions?
The clock hitting 0-0-0. So we're done with this stuff. Hey, there are 4 franchises in the NFL yet to reach the Super Bowl. The Texans at least can say, well, we're the newest of them. Well, this is season number 24 approaching. Well, we have the Browns, we have the Jaguars, and then over in the NFC, only the Detroit Lions, who've been around forever, who've never reached a Super Bowl. Came close a couple of years ago, laid the egg in the home game to the Commanders last season. The Lions are in a vastly tougher division than are the Texans. But I think at the top, the AFC is a much stronger conference than the NFC. So I'll ask you two guys and bail myself. If one of them somehow is in the Super Bowl this season, who are you taking?
Brandon?
No, not me first.
Not you first?
Nope.
If I'm going to take one of them in the Super Bowl, give me the Texans. Why not? Let's go Texans, baby.
I like the Kool-Aid drinking there. I don't know. I'm not ready to say the Texans are ready to make that step yet. I'd like to see them get to a division or a conference title game first before I'm ready to pencil them into the Super Bowl. I just don't know. I love the enthusiasm, but yeah, I don't know. Charlie, what's your answer?
Well, on the one hand, as a Super Bowl quarterback, Jared Goff, I still scoff, but Lions have been outstanding 2 consecutive seasons. The Texans have been nice, frisky, 10-7, winning a bad division consecutive seasons. Unless we somehow can transpose Mahomes, Jackson, Allen all to the NFC, I'd still have to probably say the Lions break through first.
They probably do. I will say a big challenge for them. New OCs, DCs, they're starting not kind of over with coordinators there. Ben Johnson, that great offense that they've been running, he's with the Bears now. So can Jared Goff, all that quarterback whispering he's managed to do the last couple of years, will that translate into a new OC? And the Texans too, they got a new OC, so they have questions of their own.
Yeah, but man, I don't know that it could have got, well, I don't want to say that.
Texans almost beat the Lions last year.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, the new OC. We've seen enough of Bobby Slowick, but I'm excited to see what Nick Haley brings. That's going to be it for this episode of Texans on Tap. We'll be back next week. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel with those notifications on so you know when new content drops. For Josh and Charlie, I'm Brandon saying so long. Have a good weekend. Have a good week. Go Texans.